I'm Anna, the Yarn Randomizer, and this is episode 65 of the Yarn Randomizer. You'll see me looking over there at my notes regularly. This is a knitting podcast, pretty exclusively, and what's it? I want to say I'm going to get smooth at these openings at some point or another. I wanted to say welcome to folks who are just stumbling across this podcast, and also welcome back to folks who are watching regularly. I really appreciate it. And you can find me on Instagram and Ravelry and on Gmail also as the Yarn Randomizer. Let's see, I'm going to move a little bit here. There we go. As the Yarn Randomizer. And all that information is down below. And finally, I think why randomizer? It's because I use kind of these chips with numbers on them to randomly pick yarns to knit with, and so I do that for most of my projects. So and it's really been fun. I've been doing this since I think late 2016, 2017 I started doing this, and so I found that it really upped my knitting mojo because I didn't have to try to decide what yarn to pick, but I just have it picked. I just pick it randomly and I have to figure out what to do. And for me, that's like a puzzle. And so I enjoy those. All right. So please like and subscribe if you enjoy this or find something interesting here. And so with that all out of the way, we're going to get right to it. So I had offered this yarn up for a giveaway last episode. And this is Lankava Listi. And this is the colorway Sunflower. It's really pretty. And so the winner is Donna Razor, R-A-S-O-R. It's DONNARASOR 5662 on YouTube. So if that's you, get in touch with me via my Gmail address, and we'll see about getting this out to you as soon as I can. So, all right. So other than that, let's get down to, I didn't even write it down. We can talk about, I did want to mention, there is a really nice giveaway today in the stash management section. So we'll talk more about that there. So wait around for that if you're interested. And so in the meantime, let's get to what I'm wearing. And so I actually have to look it up because I did not write any notes about it. Let's see, sometimes I make a real late decision on what I'm going to wear in the episode. Oops, okay. There we go. It is the When by the Lake sweater. I think I've worn it on the episode before, and you're going to have to excuse me. I have, my nose is bothering me. All right, and so it's the When by the Lake sweater by Lina Peterson, and this was one I knit. I finished it in January, almost 2 years ago, and it's knit with a really great combination of yarn. This is Dream in Color Lamb, which I think is only available at the Gauge yarn shop in Austin, Texas, and also Ito Sensei as the mohair. And the softness of this sweater is out of this world. And so it's similar to sweaters like Lento and the Ranunculus sweater. It's knit on big needles and everything. This one's basically got an eyelet design with these ridges. And so I love how it turned out. It's one of my favorite sweaters. So yeah, so that's what I'm wearing. And so other than that, let's get to some finished objects. Got a big surprise here. Let's see. Okay, now 2 of my finished objects were projects that just sort of cropped up around Christmas time and everything. It just ended up being stuff that I wanted to do. Let's see. I listed this Soho scrunchie first, and so I was looking for. I guess I got curious about scrunchies and about what you could make. And so I looked up scrunchie patterns. I saw Tori Yu had a free scrunchie pattern that covers from fingering yarn all the way up to bulky. And so I grabbed some leftover worsted weight in my stash. And this is the Fiber Seeds sprout worsted, excuse me. And I got hair elastics at the store, and so this has got one of those hair elastics inside. But yeah, it was easy as could be. I basically just used up all this what I had left over of this yarn, and I think it turned out great. And so I haven't gifted this to anybody yet. I've been thinking about um, obviously I'm not using this. And so I have to, I think my stepdaughter has long hair, and the wife of my stepson has long hair. And also, I don't know if he'd be interested, but my middle son, I think he's still got pretty long hair and might be able to use it. So I'll have to see, or maybe this goes into a container. I'll just knit some more of these this year and have some hair scrunchies to give away at Christmas this for next year. So we'll see. But yeah, it was as quick as could be. And I'm trying to think, are there any other details? Oh, I use size 9 needles because I'm a tight knitter with this worsted yarn. And other than that, yeah, I really highly recommend the pattern. It was neat to see how it was constructed. You need to do Kitchener stitch, so keep that in mind. That's part of the process. But yeah, turned out great. So yeah, highly recommend that pattern. All right, so I did that. And I cast on a hat. Look at that. This is the yarn that came in my Advent. And so what I decided to do was, I had mentioned in my Christmas short that I have a dear friend of mine who ended up in the hospital for a significant amount of the week before Christmas. And so I wanted to make her something. And so I decided to use the 250-gram skeins of, the yarn is Twice Sheared Sheep Color Story DK, color Natural, and I think Tide Pool is this other color. And I have some of those doodle decks, and so I actually got out one of the cards from the spring doodle deck. And do I list which one here? Florals number 16 from the spring doodle deck. I thought they looked a little bit like snowflakes. Now, my only downside to this is that this blue was so varied so much between light and dark that sometimes you lose a little bit of the pattern. But even so, I felt like it gave kind of a snowy vibe. I kind of like that. Yeah, it's not too bad. And so yeah, so I knit this hat and made this ginormous pom-pom to go with it. And what I like to do with pom-poms now is I use a button to hold them in. So I've got this tied through a button in the top so that she can take it off. And I even made a second pom-pom just in case this isn't her style. She can switch it over to this other pom-pom. So I used every bit of that yarn up. And the other thing to do is to show my floats. And so, bring this up here. Yep, so you can see my floats. They're nice and consistent. Yeah. And so there's no binding or kind of restricting of the hat by the floats. I think it turned out really great and stuff. It's really just a matter of practicing keeping your stitches spread out as you strand the color work, the yarn that's not used. And I mentioned in my Christmas short, I think number 3, people have the same issue they have with stranded color work being crunched up too much, being too restricted. They have the same thing with tubular bind off or Italian bind offs. If you're doing some setup rows and you're slipping every other stitch, you really do have to be careful to make sure to slip, kind of strand the yarn in such a way that it doesn't restrict the cast off once you're done casting it off. So yeah. And so this pattern, so I picked, it was a herringbone hat by Anne Mizuguchi, and it's a great pattern. I'll put in a picture of it. But I figured it was a free color work pattern, and I could just use it as a framework for putting one of these doodles on there. And the way the doodle finishes up here at the top, I just kind of made up. I'll probably have to I'll make a little chart for that and put it in my project at some point. But yeah, and so it turned out great. And I showed it to her on Christmas Eve and told her I had to hold on to it so I could show it. So I'll give it to her on Sunday. But yeah, it turned out really happy with how that turned out. So yeah, so that was a impromptu gift for a friend of mine. And then here's the big kahuna. I could not resist kind of once I got to the point where I was supposed to cast off my blanket over 8 days, but I couldn't resist kind of working ahead because I was really anxious to get my blanket off the needle. So, oh, here is this big behemoth, and it is off the needles. Let's see. So I've got it kind of folded up into eighths here. And so you can see I've done the full I-cord cast off on this beast. And that's all done. This whole thing, let's see, I think projects, this ended up using more yarn than my blanket did last year. So this used a total of 4,273 yards of DK yarn. And I think that's mainly due to these dip stitches here that that area is thicker and it has more yarn in it as a result. But yeah, I'm super happy with how this turned out. And so the next thing that needs to happen with this piece, oh yeah, all the ends are woven in also. See if I can show the back side of this thing. Here we go. You can see I've got all the ends. There's no ends around anymore. And so what I've got to do this coming week is I need to block this. And I'll do it the same way I did last year's, is I took it to work, and there's a big room with a large floor space that isn't used that much. And so I'll take a bunch of mats. I'll take my wash tub thing for soaking this blanket. So I'll give it a full wet soak, and then squeeze out as much of the water as possible, which is a little challenging, and then get that spread out and pinned down. And I'll put a fan on it overnight and get it blocked so it's ready to go on the bed. I'm trying to decide if I want this one on our bed or if I'll put this on the guest bed and put the one on the guest bed from last year on our bed. But yeah, so that marks the end of my second annual year-long blanket. So yeah, and I won't be doing another blanket like this coming year. I do have a couple of blankets that are kind of progress as yarn picks happen, that go into them and everything, but they're more longer term projects. So my year-long project for next year is actually going to be my it's the Anka-Strict pattern that I'm working on with some lace weight yarn. I'm making Birthday 61 by Anka-Strict. It's sitting back here somewhere, but I'm going to make that my year-long project. It's knit with lace weight yarn on size 1.5 needles, and it's half fisherman's rib, so it is a slow goer, and so that'll be my kind of background year-long project for next year. But yeah, so happy to get this off the needles. And I can't wait. I'll get some good photos of it on the bed and everything once I get that blocked. I'll take blocking pictures and include those and everything in the project, and then take some good pictures of it on the bed. So yeah, so that's my three finished objects, one of them humongous. So, and that's the thing I absolutely love about spacing the workout over an entire year, is that, it wasn't overwhelming. I could just steadily work on it, and at the end of the year, I have this amazing blanket ready to go. And so that was really fun. Might do it again in a future year, but this coming year, it'll be that sweater. so other than that, I have 2 works in progress. Let's see. So I actually mailed my sons their Christmas presents, the teeny weeny beanie and the Riptide Scarfette, and they loved it. And I told my oldest son, I said, "I'm still working on your hat," and he was okay with that. And so I'm still working on this musselburgh. And you can see the length I'm getting there. I'm trying to use up all of this self-striping yarn on the main part of the hat. I'm using the mini that came with it for each end. And so yeah, so I got a little ways to go yet. And I'm intending to finish this before the end of the year. We'll see if I can get there. But this is made with Viso yarn from Desert Vista Dye Works. Unfortunately, they're not dyeing anymore. And this is their colorway, You're Welcome, which is themed after Moana. And so I really love the colors in this self-striping yarn. I think they're turning out great on the hat. So yeah, so I'm continuing to work on that. And then another one of my, let's take this down here, yes, works in progress is my Christmas Eve cast on. So I went over my Christmas Eve cast on box in Christmas short number 3. And so I got a couple of skeins of plush DK from Hypnotic Yarn in there in the colorway called Let It Snow. And this is what that is looking like. Really love how this is turning out. And this is the pattern, if you don't recognize it, Jaunty, which is very popular right now by Andrea Mowry. And it's another thing, a project in half fisherman's rib. So you can see how this side looks, but then you can see that half fisherman's rib effect on the other side. But I think this is looking great. And this is one of the progress keepers that came with the Christmas Eve cast on. So I'm using 2 skeins of DK. So I've got it calculated out when I'm to 45% of yarn usage. I weighed each skein and totaled it up. And so this, we'll see if I can't get this done before the end of the year also, because this is a little faster being a DK. So we'll see. That's my challenge to myself, is to finish these 2 projects before the end of the year. And so that is the last of my active whips. Let me put this down here. Now, I did do weaving in of ends for all my projects that I completed. And so, but I've definitely got to come up with a New Year's resolution for getting 2 items sitting in my finishing basket. And so those are some things that need some finishing work done on them, but also a couple of things in there that need repair and everything. So I've got to come up with a process for that. And now finally to the Yarn Randomizer pick. So I took, was it, pardon me. I got all my, what I do each year is when I'm rebooting my randomizer is if there's anything I haven't started that's in my queue from randomizer picks, I take it out. So I'll be taking out I had a sweater in there picked as a second project for one of my random yarn picks. I figure I already made a scarf from that yarn, so I'm okay kind of booting that sweater out of the queue until that yarn gets picked again. So that's leaving the queue, and that was the only item I had left in the queue. And so I did, we'll talk about the Z stash I did here in a few minutes, minute or so. But so I updated, moved all the D stash yarn out of my stash and into, in Ravelry, you can classify yarn as traded, sold, or gifted. And so I put all my D stash into that category, and then I exported my spreadsheet with all the yarns in my active, my stash, ready, open for use stash. And so I sorted through my numbers as far as my little wooden chips and everything, and I had my husband make the first pick, and oh, it's right here. And so that is this is Forbidden Fiber Co., and this is their Pride fingering. And this colorway is Honeydukes. And so I have made, this is 114 yards that I have left because I had made a pair of socks with this yarn. It actually turned out really nice. These are the, I think the Ponderosa Pines socks. Yes, Ponderosa Pines by Jennifer Rundhaug. And so I made these a few years ago, and I really like how they turned out. It's got a little short row heel on there and a nice kind of a slip stitch pattern on the front. I believe that's what's going on there. Yes. And so yeah, they turned out great. But now what to do with this little bit of leftover. So I did a recording of figuring out what to do with 114 yards of fingering yarn. And it's, you know, it's not enough, even with contrast huff and heel and toe, sorry. It's not enough for a pair of shorties for me. There might have been some mittens or whatever, but I looked around and I decided on, and I recorded, I'll put that video up in about a week, but I basically decided on this pattern called Little Long Johns. Now somebody had gifted me this pattern. It's an ornament, so I'll put in a picture of it. And I figure these Christmassy colors will look great. And maybe I'll make one or two little sets of little long johns out of this yarn to hang on the Christmas tree with my other knitted ornaments. So that's what's going to happen with this. And I plan to cast that on New Year's Eve. So I'll start that on New Year's Eve. So I'll be ready to talk about it in the next episode. So that's the first random yarn pick for 2026 is this. And I'm going to make some little long johns for the tree. All right, so now we're down to, let's see, acquisitions. Let me put this out of the way. And so I did not get any, well, other than, okay, wait a minute. You know, there was yarn in my Advent, but I used that all up. And there was yarn in my Christmas Eve cast on box, but I intend to get that used up for the year, and you've seen that. And so the only other thing was some things I got for Christmas. And so it wasn't yarn, but it was this Patty Lyons knitting bag of tricks. I had seen people talk about this book a lot. And so I decided I'd pick it up, and I plan to kind of read all the way through this. I thought this would be fun. And so, yeah. So it was, my husband will ask me for a set of suggestions, and so I'll give him a list that he can pick from. And so he got me the Knitting Bag of Tricks, which I'm looking forward to reading. And he also got me, I think Strange Planet is the name of the comic. And so he got me my favorite color t-shirt. Let's see if I can do this right side up, with a particular cartoon on it from Strange Planet. And so it says, I have a new productive diversion. And they show the guy he's knitting, and says, what will it produce? And it says, an accessory for my neck. Oh, of what length? Any length I desire. There are no regulations. And so he says, oh, constructive lawlessness. The only risk is excessive warmth. I have a bag with this design on it, and I thought this would be neat. I like this. So this is my little knitting t-shirt that I got. And there's a variety of other Christmas presents unrelated to knitting, but I knew you guys would appreciate these too. So there's that. So those are my acquisitions. And now we'll get to stash management. So I held myself to my twice as much yarn out as in, and so I actually had to do a pretty substantial destash. I mentioned it last time. So it's 46 of my yarn entries in my stash I ended up destashing. So those are all stored together now. And it added up to a total of 27,297.6 yards of yarn. And so with that, and with the completion of my blanket, and with the other projects I finished toward the end of the year, um, and what I've given away and stuff, I've more than covered my double my yarn in. So I've paid my debt. And so now the question is, what do I do with my D stash? Now, I could have just taken it down to Goodwill and given it away, but I figure I will hold on. It's not available to me as far as a randomizer picks, but it's being stored, and I'm going to pull from that for giveaways for the channel. And so, and it's going to be more than that because it was 46 yarn entries. What I'm going to do is I'll have a giveaway each episode, but I think in most episodes, what's going to happen is there'll be a giveaway yarn that I'll describe and you'll see and everything. But when I mail it out, I'll also mail an additional yarn as well, additional like little surprise. So we'll see how that goes. But that should be able to supply me for the entire year easily, or get close to it. And so through the course of the year, my intent is that entire set of D-stash yarn will be given away to folks watching the channel. So yeah, so this I'll all be coming back to you. My loss is your gain. So, and it's helping me towards my goal of kind of reducing my stash overall. And I'm going to hold myself to the same thing for 2026. I have to have twice as much go out as come in. So I'm going to try to be a little more consistent with keeping it close instead of getting a little overwhelmed through the course of the year. So we'll see how that goes. Now, wanted to mention, let's see. Oh yeah, and so speaking of giveaways, I do have a giveaway for this episode. Now, this one won't come with an extra surprise because this is 2 yarns from my stash. And these are both marinated yarns. One of them is a fingering weight in the colorway Enchanted Watch. And the other 2 are mohair silk in the colorway Sea of Glass. So if you are interested in these, and my idea with these was that you would hold them together, but again, if you get this, you're not obligated to do that at all. But if you're interested in this, use the word glass in your comments. And remember, don't mention anything about giveaways. We want to keep those scammers away. We haven't had any problems with them yet. But yeah, if you're interested in this, mention glass, and I will pick a winner for this next episode. But yeah, some beautiful yarn, marinated yarn. She's got some beautiful colorways there. So this is going out to one of you next episode. So let's see now that. Oh yes, so channel income, I'm up to $490.45. And so my hope is that we'll be hitting 500 very soon, and I will give away 100 to a charity. So I'm hoping that by the time I record the next episode, I'll be able to show a donation to a charity and show the receipt for that and have that. And then the next 100 will go to me. And then we'll start over with the 100 after that going to a viewer again for a gift certificate for a yarn shop. So maybe this might happen a little more frequently depending on how many people are watching and everything. So that's it for stash management. And so wanted to mention all my Christmas shorts are out there. So they cover everything I got in my twice sheared sheep Advent. And also I have a little unboxing in one of those of my Christmas Eve cast on. And so I think now to non-yarny things. So just a real quick aside, thinking about the next 100 being for me. So the event that happened to this house too, it was about a week and a half ago, was that the furnace stopped working. So and so we had somebody come in and take a look, and it turns out we need a brand new furnace. So we're still waiting for that right now. So I'm hoping we'll be getting it this coming week. We've been very fortunate in this past week has been slightly milder, but also at the same time we have a wood burning what is stove or kind of thing in the great room in the house, and so we've been using that a lot and using some little heaters around the house. And the fortunate thing is my husband is very experienced at harvesting firewood. And so I don't, yeah, you can't see it from here, but we have it's an old elm that's on the property. And you know what happens with the elms, they get blight and so they die back. And so it has a whole bunch of really long limbs that have been kind of standing there since we bought the house. And so he's been slowly harvesting those limbs for the purpose of keeping our house warm. And so we've been working with that for the time being. He's also today down at our where our cabin is at, and the cabin is on 11 acres, and there is a lot of wood there, and so I think he's bringing back some of that wood to tide us through. So yeah, so fortunately we can keep the house warm enough, even if it gets pretty cold outside, with the wood stove and with the little heaters that our bathroom, for example, here in this house has a built-in heater in the wall, and it's the nicest thing for staying warm. I use it like before showers and things like that. But now it's helping keep the room warm enough so that pipes don't freeze. So yeah, it's been an adventurous past week and a half without the furnace, and so hopefully we'll have it back sometime next week. So when I get the next $100 after the charity donation, that's going to offset the cost of that. All right. So now to more happier notes. The video favorite I want to share is there is this really crazy channel called Project Farm, and the name doesn't really indicate what it's about, but what he does is he creates videos where he does reviews of things, and he is so incredibly thorough and comprehensive and everything. And so it's a great channel for if he reviews something that you need to purchase, you have to watch his video because he really details everything out. And so what I'm going to share from that channel is a video where he goes over frying pans, non-stick frying pans. So now he talks with a very kind of loud tone of voice and at a very specific rate. It's really, I think part of it is I find the videos funny just because of his delivery and everything, but you can't, his thoroughness cannot be beaten. It's just really worth watching them for that. And so I'm sharing the one about, about the nonstick frying pans. And so I will put in an image of it here somewhere and a link to it up there. So I hope you enjoy that. And if you need to buy anything that he's ever reviewed, watch his reviews. So now, as far as what I'm watching and reading, sit back a little bit. I watched the season end of Pluribus. I absolutely love the series. And so a couple of details. It's like, and if you don't want to be spoiled, you might want to skip ahead a little bit. But I really enjoy the pacing of the show. It's not rushed or anything. And there's a lot to think about there. It was interesting that, towards the end of the season, the collective is doing everything they can basically to kind of, they figured out a way to assimilate the remaining folks on the planet, the 13 people who are still not part of the collective, but it requires the person to voluntarily be willing to give up difficult to get, like they need to give a DNA sample, but it can't just be anything. It's got to be something more specific. And so if the people who are left behind want to join the collective, they have to go through this process. And so at the last episode, you see that happen for one of the people who were left. And it's really funky because you can see that everything that the collective, the hive mind is doing is about making that person comfortable with the idea, kind of almost like kind of winning, doing everything they can to win people over who are outside of the joining or this collective. And it even happens with Carol as far as being kind of wooed, towards this. So what's interesting in this last episode, finally, the two people who are remaining of the 13 who really want to undo what's happened finally meet, Manusos and Carol, and it's it is a meeting fraught with disagreements and rubbing people the wrong way and that kind of thing, because out of all the people left, these are probably two people who didn't enjoy humanity that much in the first place, and they're kind of jerky people. And so meeting together for the first time had its problems and everything. So in the in the meantime, the collective tries to kind of win Carol over, but finally, when she's faced with the idea that she may lose her individuality because she had said no to assimilating. They said, they wanted, if she would not donate her DNA for that purpose. But as it turns out, years prior, she had stored eggs for the purposes of having a kid eventually. And apparently, the collective is using that to try to figure out how to assimilate her. And she finds that out because they can't lie. And so that turns her, whatever kind of enjoyment she was having about, it's very, you have this everyone trying to please you, doing everything you want, trying to make you happy and all this kind of stuff. And pulling away from that is not always the easiest thing, but Carol finally kind of pulls away from that and goes back to Manusis and says, okay, let's save the world. And that's the end of the first season. So it was great, really great. And so I highly recommend watching it. Let's see. So I think, yeah, it's really funny that saving the world comes down to two of the jerkiest people on the planet, who are fairly somewhat antisocial to begin with. It was pretty funny. And so that's been what I'm watching. I also started watching Columbo again from the 70s, and so that's my comfort watch. And so I've been watching season 3 of Columbo, and I love seeing the old cars, and they're just fun. And so they're mysteries that are structured a little different. You actually know who did it from the beginning, and you just kind of watch Columbo figure it out, and they're fun. They're fun episodes. So I'm watching those right now. As far as reading, I finished The Gift of Fear by Gavin de Becker, and it was really worth listening to. I highly recommend it, reading it or listening to it. And when I described it to my husband, he wanted to read it, so I got him a copy of that book for Christmas. And then I've decided my next listen will be, I want to get the Murderbot books that the series was based on and listen to those. So I think I'm going to get a hold of those next. But I've also been listening to, there's a podcast called Ologies. I think it's called Ologies. I'll link it below and everything. But there's an episode of that I think it's really worth everybody listening to, and it's Trolleyologies. And so it's an episode centered around the thought experiment or the thought problem about, say, if you had a trolley that was going down a track, and if it keeps going down this track, it's going to kill 5 people. But you can throw a switch so it goes on a different track, but it'll kill 1 person. Would you pull that switch? And so they talk through that philosophical problem, and it's interesting. And so if you change the problem, that is, if you push this person in the way of the trolley, it saves the 5 people instead of about pulling a switch. Would you do that and everything? So there's all these philosophical questions about, is it worth saving 5 people and causing the death of 1 person? And whether you're causing it kind of by pulling the switch or by actually bodily pushing the person and stuff. And they get into kind of what happens in people's brains in these types of problems and everything. And it's really worth a listen. And I will link that episode below. And then as far as what I'm playing World of Warcraft Anniversary Edition with my brother. And that goes on and that will never end probably. And then I'm playing Morrowind with my sons, and it's really funny because it's so old school, and I'm kind of amazed that my sons enjoy this game. I find it a little primitive, but we have fun playing it. So we've been doing that. We continue that every Monday afternoon. I play with my sons, and I think that is everything. I think can't see anything else going on other than I'm so happy I finished the blanket. So yeah, so I hope you had a wonderful holiday season, whichever holiday you're celebrating, and if it's still going on or upcoming and everything, I hope it's absolutely wonderful. The things we get to do with those we love, our family and our friends and everything, are the most important things, as far as the parts of our lives and everything. So I hope you're taking care of yourself during this time of year. People can get overstretched and stuff, so take the time to take care of yourself. And I hope you're experiencing kindness and giving it in return. And I hope you are enjoying your knit.